She is a narrated fiction story created for discussion and entertainment purposes.
Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. At 2:15 a.m., a crash shattered the silence of the cabin. 12 strangers stormed in, mistaking a family's home for a party rental. But they didn't expect Trey, ex-military, bat in hand, and ready to defend what's his. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was war at Lake Garcia. You never forget the way a door sounds when it's being kicked in. It's different from a knock, or even a full-blown battering ram. It's a sound that hits you in the spine first, a sudden violating crack that slices clean through whatever dream you were having. That's how my night started at 2:15 in the damn morning. We'd had a good day. Madison and I took the kids fishing earlier. Garcia Lake had been calm, reflecting the September sky like glass. The twins caught absolutely nothing but declared it their most successful expedition ever after a frog jumped into our bait bucket. Lila beat us all in Monopoly later that night and gloated like a Wall Street tycoon. We roasted marshmallows over the fire pit. One of those days you tuck away like a photograph. By 10:30, the cabin was silent. I'd done my usual round, checked the deadbolts, verified the alarm system was armed, did a walkthrough with my flashlight, out of habit more than necessity. You can take the man out of the Army, but the Army tends to linger in the form of tactical OCD. Madison teased me for it every night, and I teased her back about misplacing her phone for the third time that day. But that sound, that crack, tore through our sleep like a bullet. I was on my feet before my eyes were open, grabbing the bat I kept leaned against the nightstand. Not a gun, not yet, but a solid 34-inch Louisville Slugger with a custom-wrapped grip. My flashlight was already clipped to my shirt pocket. I tapped twice on the wood frame above the bed, our quiet signal, and Madison stirred, grabbing her phone and nudging the kids to the panic nook we'd built in the closet. Soft footsteps, muffled breathing. Good. I moved like I'd drilled it 100 times, because I had. Stairs creaked under my weight as I came down. The cabin's old bones groaned around me, blending with something much more unnatural. Music, loud, thumping, awful club music. EDM garbage. Then laughter, shouting, glass breaking. Through the half wall, I caught the first glimpse. Bodies moving across my living room like they owned it. 12, maybe 13 of them. All young, mid-20s at best, phones out, recording themselves like jackasses on a reality show. One of them had a selfie stick. Another was lighting a blunt right there on my antique oak table. And then her, Karen. Her platinum helmet of hair bobbed into view as she stepped onto my rug like she was about to christen a yacht. Yo, you guys are all upstairs or what? Weird setup, but whatever. This the place we booked, right? Her voice cut through the music like fingernails through tinfoil. My voice came out colder than I expected. This is my house. Karen squinted as if I was a hallucination. No, she said, laughing like I was part of the entertainment. We booked this cabin through Lakeview Retreats. Come on, dude, don't play. I stepped forward into the light, keeping the bat low but visible. You broke the lock. You're trespassing. You're in a private residence with my wife and 3 kids upstairs. You've got about 15 seconds to turn around and get out before I call the sheriff. Karen blinked, confused, then offended. She did that thing people like her do, puffed up her chest, and adopted the voice of a PTA president who just found a kid vaping behind the school. Well, clearly this is just a... Behind her, a guy in a backwards cap knocked over the vase on the console table, shattered it. Another kid pulled open my fridge like he was hunting for beer. Someone yelled, "Where's the fucking bar?" That was it. I stepped fully into the room and slammed the bat against the wooden beam near the fireplace. The crack echoed over the music. Get out! The partygoers froze like deer in headlights. Karen turned beet red. "You're being aggressive," she snapped. This is a misunderstanding. My HOA approved this. That line hit me like a slap. Her HOA? You think your little cult of a neighborhood committee overrides property law? Lady, I built this place myself. You're not just wrong, you're criminally stupid. She looked around for support. The kids, her little HOA volunteers, were starting to shift, suddenly realizing this wasn't the Airbnb they'd been promised. And then the guy in the black hoodie stepped toward me. "You can't threaten us, man," he said, half drunk and trying to puff himself up. "We got rights." I didn't answer. I just gripped the bat and stepped toward him. 2 feet of air between us, tension thick as cordite. He made a move, sloppy like he thought this was a bar fight. I parried the swing with my forearm and turned his momentum into a shoulder lock. He hit the ground hard. 2 seconds later, I had a zip tie cinched around his wrists and shoved him toward the door. "You don't even know what you just did," I told him as he groaned against the floorboards. The front door had auto-locked the moment they opened it. A little upgrade I installed last winter after some bear broke in to raid our trash. The keypad required a code. They weren't getting out until I let them. I stepped back, glancing at the kitchen clock. 2:22. "Sheriff will be here in 5. Sit your asses down and don't make another move, or you'll be leaving with matching zip ties." The kid with the GoPro looked like he wanted to argue until he saw the look in my eyes. They sat. Every one of them. Karen looked like she'd just eaten a bug, and I just stood there, bat resting against my leg, ears ringing with bass, wondering what the hell kind of world I lived in, where a woman like that thought she could walk into someone else's home and throw a party. I didn't have to wait long for one of them to do something stupid. There's always one. Always some idiot who thinks he's got something to prove, even when he's zip-tied on the floor of a cabin in the middle of nowhere with a pissed-off man and a baseball bat standing over him. The guy I dropped, tall, drunk, with a face like he hadn't read a book in his life, started writhing on the floor like I'd committed a war crime by defending my home. He spat something about civil rights and unlawful detainment, slurring like a frat boy who just discovered Wikipedia. I ignored him and scanned the room. Karen was pacing now, phone in hand, tapping the screen furiously. "You're in so much trouble," she muttered. "This is excessive force." "You assaulted a guest," I said, laughing coldly. "Is that what we're calling home invaders now?" I moved to the side door, blocking it with a chair, just in case someone got creative. 2 of the guys were trying to yank open the window above the sink. I let out a sharp whistle. "Try that again, and I'll add attempted escape to the list." "Sit down." The fear was setting in. One girl couldn't have been older than 20, looked like she was going to cry. She probably thought this was going to be an epic party by the lake, complete with Instagram stories and lake selfies. Instead, she was now part of an active police investigation. "Good. Police are on the way," I said calmly. I gave them the GPS pin already. "Anyone tries to run, they'll meet the sheriff halfway." Karen wheeled on me. "This was a mistake," she hissed. "We were told the place was vacant. How were we supposed to know someone was here?" "You smashed my lock with a screwdriver," I said, pointing to the busted door. "You blasted music at 2 in the morning. One of your friends lit a joint next to a 10-year-old's drawing. That's not a mistake. That's intent." She crossed her arms, huffing. "We thought it was abandoned. People leave these cabins empty for months. People don't leave their family photographs on the walls," I snapped, "or kid toys on the stairs. Or alarms active. You're blowing this out of proportion," she whined. I didn't answer. I just looked at her. She cracked first, turning away, mumbling something about lawyers. The rest of the group was sobering up fast. The music was still playing, someone's Bluetooth speaker thumping out garbage techno, but no one dared touch it. It felt like the soundtrack to a jail sentence. I checked my watch. 2:28. 7 minutes since I made the call. That's about right for this part of the county, especially for a 911 involving a home intrusion with minors in the house. I could already hear the crunch of tires on gravel a few seconds later. Flashing red and blue lights flickered through the trees. I stepped outside, bat still in hand but held low. The first deputy, tall, calm, with a face like he'd seen everything, raised his hand in greeting. "Sir, you the homeowner?" "That's right," I said, handing him my ID and deed copy. "Trey Jensen, this is my residence. They broke in 20 minutes ago." He nodded, calling over his shoulder for backup. Within moments, the cabin porch was swarming with 3 officers. I directed them inside, calmly and clearly. One officer began separating the intruders, cuffing them one by one. Another photographed the damage: the broken vase, the scuffed floor, the busted lock. The guy I zip-tied got real quiet once they cut him loose and replaced it with real cuffs. The bravado died quick. Karen, of course, went into full performance mode. Tears welled up. Her voice quivered. "This is all just a huge mistake. We thought it was the rental house. I swear, I'm a respected member of the HOA. I would never—" "Ma'am," the deputy cut her off. "You have the right to remain silent. I suggest you use it, but this is crazy. You're just going to arrest all of us. You broke into a private residence with 12 people in the middle of the night." "That's not crazy, ma'am. That's felony trespassing. As they started loading the group into cruisers, I stood back against the porch railing, arms crossed. The last kid they cuffed, the GoPro guy, tried to plead his case. Dude, I didn't even know her. I just got invited through Snapchat. I didn't even drink anything. I gave him a blank stare. Hope the footage was worth it. Karen was still protesting as they slid her into the back seat. This is going to ruin my record. I'm a community organizer. I was trying to help. Helping yourself to my bourbon and my living room, I muttered. One of the officers turned to me before leaving. We'll have the detective reach out in the morning to take your full statement. In the meantime, do you have insurance for the property damage? Yep, I said. And security footage too. The officer gave a short nod. Smart man. And just like that, they were gone. 12 entitled assholes in the back of 3 cruisers, taken out into the night they thought they owned. I went back inside. Madison was at the top of the stairs, wide-eyed but calm, holding the twins behind her. It's over, I said. They're gone. Lila peeked from behind the hallway. Was it burglars? I exhaled slowly, leaning the bat against the wall. Worse, I said. It was idiots. By morning, the cabin was quiet again. Not peaceful, not yet, but quiet in that strange, eerie way a place feels after a storm passes through. Everything was still, but off. A chair slightly turned the wrong way. A smear of beer on the oak floor. My favorite photo. Me and the kids at the county fair, askew on the mantel like it had been laughed at. I spent the early hours cataloging the damage, the busted lock, the shattered vase, a gash in the drywall where someone must have thrown something during the chaos. Someone had even left a half-eaten slice of pizza under the couch. Who the hell breaks into a house and eats? Madison made coffee. Strong, black, and nearly boiling. Just how I needed it. We didn't say much. The kids were shaken, but all right. Lila called the whole thing the zombie party incident, and the twins kept asking if they could help booby-trap the yard next time. I appreciated the spirit. By 9 a.m., my phone started vibrating. First, a number I didn't recognize. Mr. Jensen, a syrupy voice purred. This is Karen. Karen Davis. I wanted to apologize personally for last night. I didn't respond. She kept going. Look, things got out of hand. We'd been drinking a bit. I thought the house was... Well, it's a long story. Maybe we could meet and talk this over. I'd hate for this to become a whole thing, I repeated flatly. You know what I mean, she said quickly. The sheriff, the paperwork, it just clogs up the system. Maybe there's a way we can come to an understanding. I hung up without another word. By noon, I'd received 4 text messages from unknown numbers, all variations of, hey man, Karen says you're cool, let's not press charges, and one that just said, come on bro, don't ruin lives over a party. Yeah, a party. That nearly traumatized my kids and left a guy zip-tied on my living room floor. Then came the emails. I don't know where she got my address, probably through the HOA directory she abuses like a personal Rolodex. But within 24 hours, I had a formal apology letter from Karen on behalf of the Lakeview Legacy Volunteer Committee, full of passive-aggressive language like, we regret any misunderstanding, and we recognize that the situation may have been misinterpreted. No, Karen, I didn't misinterpret 12 drunk strangers ransacking my home. I interpreted it just fine. By the end of the week, the tone shifted. No more warm and fuzzy apologies. I got a call from my attorney. Art Graves, retired JAG officer, and the closest thing I've got to a silver bullet in a blazer. You're gonna love this, he said, half laughing. Karen Davis just filed a counterclaim against you. You're kidding. She's alleging excessive force, unlawful detention, and emotional distress. Claims you assaulted a minor, and get this, that you ran a militia-style operation in your home. I nearly dropped my coffee. She seriously used the word militia. Oh yeah, claims you had weapons, tactical gear, and booby traps set up. Apparently the bat and zip ties are part of some paramilitary system. Art, I said, rubbing my temples. You've seen my house. Yeah, he chuckled. And it looks like Bass Pro Shops had a baby with an old ranger station. But nothing illegal. He advised me to sit tight and let him file a response. I trusted Art. The man once dismantled a Pentagon audit over bad stapling technique. But I wasn't going to sit idle. I pulled the SD cards from my security system, made cloud backups, and burned hard copies. I kept every text, every voicemail, every weird DM from some 20-year-old with a username like Hoa Queen. If she wanted war, I'd bring documentation. Then the Facebook group lit up. Lakeview Legacy HOA Facebook group, a festering swamp of digital Stepford smiling, exploded into action. Posts like, concerned about aggression in our neighborhood. Veteran loses control. Attacks partygoers. Time to talk about who we let live near our lake. They never used my name, but everyone knew who they were talking about. Picture of my driveway with the sheriff's cruiser out front. Blurred shots of Madison at the grocery store. One post even speculated that we were survivalists planning a takeover of the HOA. Madison saw the post and asked if we should respond. No, I said. They want noise. We'll give them evidence. The icing on the cake came from a neighbor, George, good man, quiet guy who runs a landscaping business. He dropped off a USB stick in my mailbox with a note. Thought you might want this. Ring cam caught the whole thing. I plugged it in. There she was. Karen, strutting up to my cabin at 2:12 a.m., drink in hand, laughing. You sure he's gone for the weekend? One of her followers asked. Karen laughed. Trey, that guy, he disappears for days. Worse that happens, he calls the cops and they make us leave. Totally worth it. YOLO. Jesus. I showed the footage to Art the next morning. His grin stretched ear to ear. Well, he said, I think Karen just shot her own case in the foot. Let's load this into the Canon Art, uploaded the security footage to a private server, and looped in the sheriff's office the same day. He also prepared a public statement, short and surgical. Mr. Jensen maintains all actions taken were lawful and necessary to protect his family and property. Nothing fancy, no dramatics, just the truth, sharpened to a legal point. But I wasn't content to sit in the back seat. This was my home, my name. My family's piece she was dragging through the mud, so I did something I never thought I'd do. I made a Facebook post. Simple, direct. Attached were 3 clips. First, Karen and her entourage walking up to my door, one guy holding a Bluetooth speaker like he's storming Coachella. Karen says clearly, don't worry, I've got this key. HOA privilege, and then proceeds to jimmy the lock with what looks like a library card. Second, the moment they burst inside. Her yelling, if he left it open, that's not my fault, while someone behind her screams, shotgun the master bedroom. Real nice. Third, the confrontation. Me on the stairs, calm but firm, my voice steady. No screaming, no threats. Just, this is my home. Leave now or face the police. Then the beer can flying past my head. No commentary, just facts. The post exploded. Within 12 hours, it had over 200 comments. Half of them from Lakeview residents I didn't even know, saying things like, holy hell, that's my HOA president. And I thought Karen just organized food drives, not break-ins. Apparently, I wasn't the first person she'd tried to intimidate. A former HOA treasurer DM'd me anonymously and said Karen once tried to reallocate funds for a neighborhood beautification party that ended up being a wine-soaked bash at her rental. Another claimed she once threatened to fine a neighbor for planting non-compliant hydrangeas. Whatever that meant, I was starting to get the picture. Karen didn't lead the HOA. She ruled it. But now, the cracks were showing. She posted a defensive statement through the HOA page the next day, claiming the video was edited out of context and that she was the victim of a calculated smear campaign orchestrated by someone with a military background and a violent temper. That's someone being me. She attached a screenshot from my LinkedIn, circled the words former tactical training specialist like it was a threat. She even highlighted the part where I worked security for the wildlife preserve, trying to twist forest safety into something menacing. Art just laughed. She really thinks your resume is incriminating. You should have seen what she did to my Amazon reviews, I muttered. Apparently my 5-star rating for bear spray makes me unstable. But the real blow to her credibility came the next evening. I was sitting on the porch, beer in hand, listening to the loons out on the lake, when a white Prius pulled into my drive. A young guy stepped out, shaggy hair, awkward energy, and walked up like he was delivering bad news. You Trey? I stood. Depends who's asking. I'm Nate. I was at the party. Look, man, I just wanted to say I'm sorry. And I think you should know some stuff. He wasn't drunk. He wasn't belligerent. He just looked tired, like he'd been carrying a secret too long. She told us the house was hers, he said. Said it was like a secondary rental property she managed. Said you were some off-grid guy who never stayed here more than a weekend a month. I stared. She what? She told us it was cool, he said, that it wasn't even technically registered, just this old vet's cabin she had keys to and he wouldn't even notice. We thought, I don't know, man. I was stupid I didn't respond right away. I just studied his face. Why are you telling me this now? Nate shrugged. Because I saw the video. And I saw what she's doing online. You weren't the threat. She was. He handed me a slip of paper with his name, number, and a written statement already signed. I'll testify, if it comes to that. I thanked him and he left. Art couldn't believe our luck. You just got your star witness, he said. And, more importantly, we've got motive. She knew it wasn't hers. She misrepresented ownership. She coached these kids into thinking it was just a weekend rager at an empty place. We packaged the footage, Nate's statement, and a series of screenshots from Karen's group chats that had been anonymously sent to Art's inbox, complete with her, bragging, "Don't worry, I've done this before." This guy's a ghost done this before. That raised some eyebrows. Art filed for discovery on any past HOA complaints involving Karen. Turns out this wasn't her first property mistake. A year ago, she hosted a wine mixer in someone else's detached garage by accident. 6 months before that, she broke into a neighbor's boathouse, claiming she was inspecting it for compliance. Each time, she blamed clerical errors, Google Maps, or miscommunication. No charges ever stuck. But not this time. Art's grin was practically predatory. We're going to bury her with her own history. The wheels were turning now. What started as a bizarre, terrifying home invasion had just transformed into something bigger. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about pattern. And Karen had just walked right into it. The summons came on a Wednesday. Thick envelope, certified mail, return address, Dane County Superior Court. I opened it at the kitchen table, still in my sweatpants, coffee halfway to my lips. Madison watched from across the table, tense. The kids were at school, thank God. Inside, notice of a scheduled pretrial hearing. Karen Davis versus Trey Jensen. Plaintiff alleging civil misconduct, reckless endangerment, emotional trauma, defamation, and unlawful detainment. She was really going for the full bingo card. Art skimmed the documents with the enthusiasm of a cat disemboweling a mouse. You've got to admire the sheer volume of bullshit packed into one claim. She's accusing you of running a hostage situation in your own house. She say anything about the beer? Can someone threw at my head? I asked. Shockingly, no. We filed our counterclaim the next day. Full documentation, trespassing, destruction of property, invasion of privacy, trauma inflicted on minors, and, of course, the footage. Every second of it, burned to multiple drives and backed up to the cloud like the Holy Scriptures. The first hearing was uneventful, the usual legal sparring. But Karen showed up with a lawyer in a purple blazer who looked like he hadn't seen daylight since dial-up internet. And Karen, she wore a white blazer like she was about to accept an award for community leadership. She tried to make eye contact with me in the courtroom lobby. I didn't blink. Inside, her lawyer tried to push a narrative that sounded like the opening to a bad true crime podcast. Your Honor, my client was misled by faulty information regarding the property's availability. She believed, in good faith, that the residence was vacant and accessible. Furthermore, the defendant's response was disproportionate. He detained partygoers, used physical force, and created an atmosphere of fear. Art stood like he was stretching for a 9-inning baseball game. Your Honor, we will demonstrate that the plaintiff knowingly and unlawfully entered private property without consent, instruction, or right. We have video footage, a witness, a history of prior infractions, and a signed statement indicating premeditated deception. The only thing my client is guilty of is not beating the hell out of them with the baseball bat instead. The judge cleared his throat sharply. Withdrawn, Art said without blinking. We got a date for the main trial. The sheriff's department provided written reports backing up our claims. Several of the young people involved had already taken plea deals for trespassing and minor vandalism, avoiding court entirely. One of them, a 19-year-old named Colin, turned out to have 3 prior violations on record. He folded fast. Colin's testimony was key. He admitted, under oath, that Karen had told the group, "This guy never shows up. It's his backup cabin." He doesn't even have kids. When someone asked about the legality of it, she reportedly answered, "They can't prove squat. If he shows, we just say we booked it. No big deal." That quote, "No big deal," I got read into the record. Art smiled like a kid on Christmas morning. We also subpoenaed internal emails from the Lakeview Legacy HOA. Took some doing, but once we hinted at a potential civil liability for the association itself, their lawyer flinched and complied. What we found was gold. Karen had emailed the HOA board 2 days before the incident, requesting they temporarily delist my property from any emergency contact rosters, citing reconstruction. There was no reconstruction. I'd had no open permits. Nothing. She tried to erase me from the grid. But the real kicker? An email from Karen to the youth committee, time-stamped the night before the break-in, reading, "Tomorrow's going to be epic. VIP night at the Ghost Cabin. Bring your A game. Trey won't be a problem. Wink emoji and everything." It wasn't just deception anymore. It was intent. Premeditated, coordinated, repeated. Art practically skipped into court with that discovery. But as all of this unfolded, something else was shifting. Neighbors started knocking on my door. First, George. Then a woman named Marcy. Then the O'Neills from across the inlet. All of them said the same thing, in different ways. "We're sorry." They'd believed her. Bought into her whole image. Community leader, protector of values, face of the HOA. Some of them had even joined her smear campaign early on, liking Facebook posts, parroting talking points about unhinged veterans. They didn't know, but now they knew. When Marcy told me that Karen had once threatened to fine her over a child's chalk drawings on the sidewalk, I wasn't even surprised. When the O'Neills revealed she'd used HOA funds to pressure them into joining a waterfront preservation initiative that turned out to be a kegger, I just nodded. It was unraveling fast. Art looked over the final witness list for the trial and muttered, "She's going to lose more than this case." "Her dignity?" I asked. "Her grip?" The trial began on a cold Monday morning. The kind of morning where the mist off Garcia Lake clings to your clothes like bad memories. Madison kissed me on the cheek before I left and said, "Whatever happens, we know the truth." I nodded, but the weight in my chest said otherwise. Courtrooms have a smell, old carpet, stress, and desperation. Karen sat on the opposite side, perfectly poised in another white blazer, like she was auditioning for sainthood. Her lawyer sat beside her, flipping through a binder so thick it looked like a phone book for people who'd never made a good decision in their lives. Art leaned toward me and whispered, "She's dressed like she's going to apologize to a dying dolphin." That's a good sign, the judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s, opened with a reminder to keep things civil. Then it began. Karen's lawyer made his opening statement like he was narrating a tragedy. My client, a respected community leader, entered what she believed was a vacant structure. She encountered an aggressive man with a weapon, acting outside the law, terrorizing a group of young people. He actually said terrorizing. Then he called Karen to the stand. She put on a performance so sugary I nearly got diabetes. Said she was led to believe the cabin was unused, that she was planning a modest gathering to celebrate community, that she feared for her life when I attacked her guests with a weapon. Art's eyebrows rose so high I thought they might detach. When he stood to cross-examine, the whole courtroom leaned in. "Miss Davis," he began smoothly, "can you explain the statement you made the night before the incident?" He read aloud from her email. "Tomorrow's going to be epic. VIP night at the Ghost Cabin. Bring your A game. Trey won't be a problem." Karen blanched. Her lawyer tried to object. The judge waved him down. Art continued, "Did you have permission to enter the Jensen residence?" I believed, yes or no, Miss Davis." "No." "Did you notify the HOA that Mr. Jensen's property would be used for a social event?" "No." "Did you inform the group that the house was yours?" "Yes." He nodded. "Thank you. No further questions." Then it was my turn. I took the stand, spoke plainly. I told them what happened, from the moment we heard the crash to the moment the sheriff hauled them away. I kept it direct, no dramatics, just the facts. When Art played the security footage, the courtroom was dead silent. The beer can flying at my head got an audible gasp. But the real moment came when Nate took the stand. Clean shirt, neat hair, palms sweating, but his voice didn't waver. She told us it was hers. Said Trey was some ex-military nut who barely showed up. She said we were doing the neighborhood a favor by bringing some life to the place. I honestly thought she had the right to be there. I wouldn't have come otherwise. Karen stared daggers at him. Then Colin testified. confirmed Karen said we were ghosts in the woods, and that no jury would ever take a veteran over a bunch of kids. That part didn't go over well. Art wrapped up with a blistering closing argument. This isn't just a case of trespass, Your Honor. This is targeted manipulation, coordinated deceit, and character assassination. My client didn't act out of anger. He acted out of necessity. He defended his home, his wife, his children from a coordinated break-in planned by a woman who believed her position in the community placed her above the law. The judge recessed. 2 hours later, we reconvened. The ruling was short, direct, brutal. The court finds in favor of the defendant, Mr. Jensen. Furthermore, the court recognizes clear evidence of premeditated trespass, false claims, and willful endangerment. Plaintiff's claims are dismissed with prejudice, but she wasn't done. The judge added that the court was forwarding all materials to the district attorney's office for review of criminal charges. Karen's face collapsed like a wet cake. As she left the courtroom, flanked by reporters and HOA board members, someone yelled, "Still want to be president, Karen?" She didn't answer. Art and I shook hands outside. "I think that went well," he said, grinning. "You think? Let's just say her goose isn't cooked." It's flambéed. I stood on the courthouse steps for a long moment, breathing in the air. It didn't smell like desperation anymore. It smelled like justice. If I thought the court verdict would be the end of it, I was wrong. It was the spark. Within 48 hours, the sheriff's department launched a full investigation into Lakeview Legacy HOA, citing patterns of abuse of authority and potential criminal conduct by board leadership. That's Karen, of course. But now, they weren't just looking at what happened to me. They were digging into everything. Turns out, once someone finally pries the lid off a septic tank, the smell brings out every complaint you thought was buried. Anonymous tips started flooding in. The sheriff's tip line crashed twice in one day. Apparently, Karen's leadership extended far beyond breaking into my cabin. One report came from a retired schoolteacher, said Karen used her HOA status to inspect her boathouse while she was out of town, took her kayak for safety testing, brought it back 2 days later with cigarette burns in the seat. Another from a young couple. Karen fined them $500 for unauthorized wind chimes and then used their deck for her personal yoga retreat, claiming it was a community engagement event. I wish I were making this up. 3 neighbors submitted sworn affidavits about temporary use of their property by HOA volunteers, all traced back to Karen's text messages. Always the same script. It's just for the weekend. We're improving the community. They're never even home. Then the finances came under scrutiny. The HOA treasurer, an anxious guy named Greg, who looked like a squirrel on espresso, cracked under pressure. Turns out Karen had repurposed several $1,000s of HOA funds over the last year. Community events, website redesign, neighborhood banners. But receipts showed wine deliveries, catered sushi, and, incredibly, a bounce house rental registered under the name Lakeview Leadership Empowerment Retreat. Art got the call from the DA's office first. "They're moving on charges," he said, voice calm but satisfied. "Criminal trespass, fraud, misuse of HOA funds, and they're building more." I sat on the porch when the news broke publicly. Local news ran a full segment. HOA president accused of breaking into neighbor's home. Faces felony charges. Madison and I watched it on the living room TV. The kids sat cross-legged on the floor, jaws open. Lila actually whispered, "That's our house," when the footage played. The twins gave each other a high five. Karen was caught mid-stride in the video clip, sunglasses on, shouting at a camera crew, yelling that she was being targeted by a militia cabal. No idea what that meant, but it played great on repeat. The fallout was fast. Residents started pulling out of Lakeview Legacy like rats off a burning boat. HOA membership dropped by over 40% in a week. The Facebook group went dark. All posts were archived, comments disabled. Then, like magic, the page vanished completely. Next, an emergency vote was held. Karen wasn't present. Naturally, 93% voted to dissolve the HOA entirely. What remained of the board resigned. The treasury account was frozen. Greg, the squirrel man, was placed under supervised audit. As for Karen, she lawyered up. Again, but this time it didn't help. She was slapped with formal charges and ordered to appear in court within 30 days. Her rental contract was terminated by the property owner, who cited reputational damage. The house went on the market within the week. For a woman who once introduced herself as the face of Lakeview, she vanished faster than a beer at a frat party. The final cherry came in the form of an envelope. Certified mail. Return address, Circuit Court of Wisconsin. Inside, a judgment in my favor in the civil suit. Karen was ordered to pay restitution for property damage, defamation, and emotional distress. Total $83,000. That didn't include the HOA's liabilities, which were now piling up like firewood. Art showed up that night with a bottle of single malt and 2 glasses. To justice, he said, raising his glass. I raised mine. To security cameras. We toasted on the back deck, watching the moon ripple across Garcia Lake. The wind was cool, the night calm. I hadn't slept this well in months. I installed new floodlights and upgraded the motion sensors the next day. Full 360-degree coverage, silent alarms, reinforced locks. I wasn't paranoid. I was just done giving people the benefit of the doubt. And just for fun, I replaced the broken vase in the hallway with a new centerpiece. A sleek wooden plaque with the words carved in deep, bold lettering, "Private property, break in and you'll meet Trey again." The delivery guy laughed when he dropped it off. Some kind of inside joke? You could say that. It's been a month since the dust settled. Garcia Lake is quiet again. Not the uncomfortable silence that follows chaos, but the good kind. The kind where you hear loons call at sunrise, or your kids laugh from the dock while trying to catch fish that will never bite. Karen's house. Well, the house she rented, sold to a retired couple from Michigan. Good folks. Brought us a pie on moving day. Said they'd heard something wild went down here last season. I just smiled and said, you could say that. They didn't ask more. Smart people. The old HOA sign that used to hang at the entrance to the Lake Road, Lakeview Legacy, preserving community through standards, got taken down and auctioned off. Some guy bought it ironically and turned it into a bird feeder. Funny how fast people forget who ran things when the tyrant vanishes. As for Karen, last I heard, she moved down to Illinois, trying to land a consulting gig with a private zoning agency. Didn't go well. One call from a reporter asking about the cabin incident and the job offer vanished. Can't run from your name when it's been etched into court records, archived Facebook posts, and half a dozen security cam videos that still get reposted with captions like, Karen breaks into the wrong damn house. She filed for bankruptcy 2 weeks ago. Public record. I didn't gloat much. We used the restitution money to repair the damage, replace the locks, upgrade the surveillance system, and buy a few new toys for the kids. I also installed solar backup for the perimeter alarms and built a custom tool cabinet for the gear I keep on hand just in case. Some people call it overkill. I call it preparation. Madison's already talking about painting the upstairs guest room. Finally, says it needs a lighter color, less log cabin, more lake modern. I told her she's in charge of color swatches, and I'll handle the latter. Deal struck. The kids are back to their old selves. Lila started calling that night the zombie party incident. Says it like it's a family holiday. She even drew a cartoon of me standing on the stairs with glowing red eyes and a bat, saying, "Leave or bleed." I framed it. There's healing in humor. I wrote a short op-ed for the Garcia County Sentinel last week. Titled it, "Property rights aren't just a concept, they're a line in the ground." I didn't name names, just talked about what happens when people forget that homes are more than wood and nails. They're memory vaults, sanctuaries. And when someone kicks their way in like they own the place, they're not just breaking the law, they're breaking trust. That article got more responses than I expected. People thanking me, sharing their own experiences. One guy said it made him finally confront his HOA about a bogus fine for overly rustic garden furniture. I guess even small stands matter. This morning, I went down to the dock before sunrise. Just me. A cup of coffee and the slow fog curling off the lake. The new plaque hangs right inside the front hallway, the one that replaced the shattered vase. Private property, break in and you'll meet Trey again. It's not a threat. It's a promise. And not just to strangers, to myself, that this is our place, our line in the ground. And no matter who comes knocking next time, HOA or not, I know exactly who I am and what I'll do. Because some lessons once learned etched themselves into the bones. And some names. Well, let's just say Karen's not welcome at the lake anymore.